First, it is great to speak with you. Even better, the weather is amazing. Not too hot, not too cold, a little bit of sun breaking in. We've had it rain at this event before, but not today, and it's not going to happen.
We're not saying those four-letter words. We're grateful that the weather's great, and we were blessed with a wonderful performer, Lisa Ojig, our hoop dancer, who's actually giving us good vibes today.
How do you feel being back here? It's a CFC homecoming. This is the second, even though this event has been around for a very long time.
Yeah, the event's been around for a long time, but we've kind of tweaked it over the last couple of years. So we're thrilled to be back. We're thrilled the alumni are here. And, you know, everybody should have a good time. And we're hoping everybody can dance.
There we go. We have to, because there's a certain theme, because we're hearing the music in the background. What is that theme? Something that I loved growing up in.
80s. It's 80s. Great music, great period. It was also the decade in which the center was founded, so we're hearkening back to those days.
Let's talk about the center. 35 years ago, CFC. Why was it important to have this establishment here in Canada? Even though we're talking about Toronto, it's a Canadian institution. And for me, because of doing interviews, I've interviewed a lot of great directors and people coming out of this place.
We were very, very blessed that 35 years ago, Norman Jewison, one of Canada's legacy creators, decided it was time that he wanted to bring that training that he garnered when he was in Hollywood and all over the world, and he wanted to make sure Canadians were ready and prepared creatively to go out into the world. So it's all because of Norman Jewison, and we're grateful, and we've continued that work in the last 35 years. We've trained great alumni, too many to mention, too many. Over 2,000 alumni have come through the center in the last 35 years. I would say that we've got 85% of them are still working in the industry. It's great. It's a great place, and they leave us and they go right into the industry. No further training required.
And what about this event? Why is this event so important as we do this during the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival?
It's very important because, one, we get to celebrate all of our alumni. They're Canadian creators. A lot of our alumni have projects that are being screened at TIFF, so we think that's great. And then lastly, it's also a fundraiser to remind people what we do here, why we do it, and how important it is.
Now, for folks who, of course, could not make it here, how can they help with funding if they want to donate? What can they do?
Oh, they can go on our website, and there's a big button saying Donate Now, and they can press on that, and we'll take anything, big, small, medium. We're just grateful because we want to continue doing this work in the future.
And I was going to ask, as the last question, what advice do you want to give to the next generation of filmmakers who hopefully will be an alumni of the CFC? What do you want to say to them?
I want them to be bold, be adventurous, don't staunch your creativity, and please apply to come to the CFC.
Okay, well, look, they're playing my song, EWF. We got to get out there and dance. So, thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
You know, last year when we had a chance to talk, because you had to film at the Toronto International Film Festival, I was so thrilled because we had not talked in a long time. And back in the 90s and early 2000s, every year you and I spoke about a film or a project. I was so happy to see you last year, just as thrilled to see you again this year. How are you doing, my friend? I am so proud of you and always look up to you.
You know what? I'm doing great. I'm up here at the CFC homecoming. I started my career up here at the CFC in 1991. It was a summer of August 1991. I was up here with a bunch of filmmakers of color, and while I was up here, I made my first short film. That film won TIFF in '93. A couple years later, I made my first feature film, Rude, and that film won a prize at TIFF. So TIFF and the CFC have been instrumental in my career, and so it's wonderful to be back up here 30 plus years later.
What is it like to have a teacher like Norman Jewison by your side who always talks about your praises?
You know what? Norman Jewison has been my mentor ever since I came up here back in '91. Whenever I would make a film, I would reach out to Norman and I would ask him his opinion. And you know, Norman was always gracious with his time. He was always generous. And yeah, he's one of the reasons why I make movies.
You know, One of the things that I always look at you as a groundbreaker was because I remember back in the 80s and 90s when black filmmakers were finally getting a chance to speak their mind. But it was mostly in the States. We didn't have too many in Canada. You were one of the first to do that. How does it feel knowing that back then you were helping to break ground to when today I'm talking to black filmmakers all the time and it's considered the norm?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, like you said, back in the late 80s, early 90s, those are kind of groundswell, not only in the U.S., but in places like England and in Africa and, of course, Canada, where there was a new wave of black filmmakers who were really pushing through and try to make films that were speaking to their personal experiences. And you know what? Look, I was one of the handful of filmmakers here in Canada doing that. And now, like you say, you know, there's been a revolution of black filmmakers who are now picking up the mantle and walking forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk about the film that you had last year.
Last year I had a film called Brothers. It's based on a great novel by David Terry Andy, and it's a novel that I read, loved, knew that I had to make it into a film, and it really sort of gave me back my sense of, my sense as an artist. It really rejuvenated me, and I'm really grateful for David for that.
What's going on now?
Right now, there's a strike going on right now in our industry. There's a SAG strike, there's a Writers Guild strike. So right now, there was a project that I was working on, and it's on pause right now until it gets resolved. And so I'm just here enjoying the CFC.
What advice do you have for the future filmmakers who will hopefully one day be an alumni with CFC?
My advice is always the same, is to go out and make movies. Look, back when I started, you actually had to make film on film. You had to find 60 millimeter or 35 millimeter. Now, they have a phone in their pocket that's probably more powerful than what I had. And so I would say make a film, write a short script, get your friends together, and spend a weekend making a short film. I would say if you want to make films, go out and just do it.
Congratulations on your success, and thank you for allowing me to be part of the journey.
Look, Rudy, it's been wonderful talking to you over the last 30 years, sir. So thank you again for another great conversation.
Correct. Always mad respect for you, and it seems like, man, every time I talk to you, there's always something going on in your career, something great. Last year, at the Toronto International Film Festival, it was, of course, a great film that you were part of. This year, we're going to talk about basically your legacy, which is something that's being celebrated. How does it feel to have such an important career that is groundbreaking?
I mean, it's a little surreal, and I'm kind of like a head down work guy, so I'm kind of you're like, oh, that's it. But it's cool, especially when you get a moment, especially when you're there. You know what I mean? When I get the word, it's like, yo, we're doing a thing. Okay, like I said, but when you're in that moment, you're like, oh, wow, it's a thing right here.
Right off the top, man, how's it feel being at the CFC homecoming? We're talking 80s, brother.
Very cool, brother. Very, it's good to see things progress in a good way.
And last year, as I said, you had a film here. Can you talk about that, please?
I produced a documentary called Quiet Minds, Silent Streets. It's a short doc, directed by Karen Chapman, produced by my organization, Operation Prefrontal Cortex, and in partnership with Headspace, about a community in Malton that starts to meditate. The gun violence is very extreme, the trauma, it was very rough for those kids, and one of their teachers said, let's meditate, and change their lives. So we went and documented that, and now their experience and their message is doing the same thing, so it's great.
You talked about that to me once on a red carpet. You said that meditation really does help.
Meditation's a big, especially when we start getting into violent and aggressive behavior as a way to address violence in general. The parts of the brain, when they look at the violent, aggressive brain, the prefrontal cortex is smaller than the average, and the amygdala is larger than the average. Prefrontal cortex is decision making, amygdala is emotional control. So big emotions, small decisions. Meditation makes your prefrontal cortex bigger and shrinks your amygdala. So when you bring this into violent and aggressive places or people who are traumatized, stress also does this to your brain. So even if, you know what I mean, the way your brain can be in this way. Abuse and neglect as a child affect how it will develop, and stress. So you might have grown up in a very loving home and your brain is fine, but then you decide to become a cop. And slowly the same effects will happen, right? So meditation is how you reverse this damage.
We cannot do this interview without talking about what is going to be coming up very soon, the Legacy Awards. How does it feel being celebrated in such an important event? And this is the second one.
I mean, it's incredible. CBC has a black award show.
Yes, we can laugh about it.
You know what I mean? Like, we grew up out here, baby. This was unthinkable. And then getting the award on that show for my career is surreal.
What do you got coming up, man?
September 27th on Global Television, Robin Hood premieres.
That's yours?
That's me.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations on that. Yeah. Look, I've been seeing I've seen the promos. What is that about? Because what a twist to this.
Yeah. So Robin Hood is a modern day Robin. This time it's spelled with a Y because it's a girl. Get it? So, Robin is a black woman. She lives at the corner of Sherwood and Forest. John Prince wants to buy the Sherwood Towers from the city and turn it into some fucking condo or some shit. And he's got the sheriff of New Nottingham in his pocket to do his bidding. And Robin and her friends come together to fight back and do a little stealing from the rich and giving to the poor.
I cannot wait to see this, especially now you're the man behind this. Look, I'll let you go. Enjoy the party. And again, thank you so much for all the interviews over the years. It's always been a pleasure speaking to you, my friend.
Hey man, thank you, bro. Good seeing you.